what you give to people is, full of vitality. It's full of juice, because it's not at the detriment of you. You haven't sacrificed anything. You haven't sacrificed yourself, and that you love yourself just as much as you love everybody else, which is what I think the mystery wants. Hello friends, John Dalton here for the Emergence podcast, where we go into love, consciousness, and the mystery. In this episode, we're going into Unfollowing the Chaos, Changing Our Thoughts, Complete Compassion, Holding Yourself, and Meditation. Now, let's have a look at some of the memes on the Further Emergence Instagram feed. This one says, "Unfollow the chaos, darling. Unsubscribe from the circus. Take back your thoughts. Take back your joy. Make peace your home again." And that's by C.S. Laurie. It's a nice idea, isn't it? We kind of forget that we can do that we can unsubscribe from the chaos. We kind of think the chaos is happening to us. And sometimes it is. Sometimes you're in a situation and you can't get out of it. There's nothing you can do. You just have to be in it. But most of the chaos goes on inside. And we can certainly unsubscribe from that. Not in a cruel way, not in a harsh way, not in a suppressive way, but just we can see it for what it is and kind of go, there is a choice here. Because, being overwhelmed, having lots of thoughts, it's so full of momentum, and we can get so caught up in it that it's easy to kind of feel like there isn't anything we can do about it. And there isn't initially. It's not like you can force it to stop, but you can begin to get a bit softer with it. It can become softer, and you can kind of go, okay, it's there now. It's a little bit further away. It's a little bit further away. Now I'm sort of looking at it. A minute ago I was in it. It covered me. It was all over me. Now I'm back a little bit. It's all got a little bit softer. It's still happening. I'm still being asked questions. I'm still having, rubber ducks thrown at me or whatever it is. It's all going on, but it's just a little bit softer and it's a little bit further away. It is possible, but it's only possible if you begin to, explore the possibility of it being possible. When you're right in it, when you don't have any distance from it, then you're just reacting. But as soon as you begin to pull back from it, you can, as I say, it gets a bit softer. It's still all going on. You're still responding, but you're relating to it in a softer way. And in time, it can get quite far away, meaning you can see it for what it is, and you can see your reactions coming, and you can kind of go, is that reaction really a good representation of me? Maybe not. Maybe I can pull back from that one. Maybe I can not let that one out the trapdoor of my mouth. Maybe I can just keep that one for myself, because I don't think it's going to help, and it's just going to be unkind. So maybe I won't do that reaction, and so on. That's a version of taking back your thoughts, taking back your joy. Joy kind of comes when you start to do that, because then you're not taking it so seriously. You're not so caught up in it. You're like, you can see it for what it is, which is just, a lot of things coming at you very fast. And then, of course, if you can physically step away, even for a minute or two, makes a big difference, because you're breaking up the momentum. You're breaking up the momentum of just one thing after another, after another, after another. You step back a little bit, and if you can step outside for 5 minutes, that's one of the things that people have lost from smoking, is one of the very nice things about smoking. Not that I'm advocating smoking, but it was a pause. It was that moment. I mean, it was doubled, because you would step outside, you'd have a cigarette, and then the nicotine, of course, would slow everything down, and all would be well in the world, and But cigarettes aside, stepping outside to just look at the night sky, or the day, or breathe in the air, feel the rain, whatever's going on, it does put that pause in, which when you return into the chaos, It just makes it a little bit more easier to deal with. And making peace your home again. When was the last time peace was your home? Probably when you were a baby, maybe. But even then, the inner life of babies can be quite fraught. They haven't been alive that long, and everything is kind of life and death for babies. So if mummy doesn't respond when I cry, or daddy doesn't respond when I cry, it can be like, oh my God, I'm going to die. So there is a certain amount of peace. There's a certain amount of beingness as babies. They're very in the moment, much more so than we are as adults. But are they peaceful? Not so sure. So whenever you can think back to when peace was your home, maybe it never was your home. Maybe you have to. It's not again. Maybe it's something new for you. Maybe you're discovering how to make peace your home, and how you do that is by this pulling back and kind of going, I have a choice here. I can unsubscribe. I mean, they're kind of alluding towards social media and following and all that kind of thing. And that's fine. But, unless it's really a problem for you, like unless you are doom scrolling for a long periods of time, 4 or 5 hours every night. But if you're just like having a little look at what's going on Instagram, what's going on TikTok, and what, that's fine. Once it's not disturbing you, if it's disturbing you, and this comes from you've got to check in, what are you feeling like when you come off whatever it is, and each platform you'll find gives you a different thing. So, you can look on TikTok for a little while, and then when you are finished, put your phone down, just check in. How do I feel? Am I feeling uplifted, wonderful, fantastic? I mean, there's lots of people saying, oh, you're going to feel terrible. You're going to have dopamine, serotonin, toxicity, blah, blah, blah. And, you're like, gee, I better stop. But you mightn't, you might kind of go, well, I actually feel quite uplifted. That's perfectly fine. Or you might go, you know what, I feel a bit flat. After, I've looked at all that stuff, it was great, but I just feel a bit flat. Or you could feel joyous. You could have just seen 14 funny things in a row and just go, you know what, things are not that serious. People fall off step ladders. People trip over their cat. It's really funny. Or people dress up in funny costumes and frighten their partners, in a funny kind of way. So it's not so much to kind of go, oh, all social media is bad, but it's this thing of checking in. But if you find it is causing you to not be peaceful, then you can kind of go, oh, that platform's not so great. Or maybe the people I'm following on that platform are not so great. Maybe I should unfollow those people. Yes, I know they're telling me about the terrible things that are happening in the world, and I'll be uninformed if they don't tell me. Maybe that's for your own peace of mind in the day. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Then maybe you can inform yourself in a controlled way. So the sentiments in this meme are lovely. This idea of empowerment, taking control, and deciding how you want yourself to be on the inside. That's a beautiful thing. The next one says, change your thoughts and you change your world. That sounds great, doesn't it? All I've got to do is change my thoughts. It's that easy. Changing one's thoughts is not easy, because often we're not even conscious of the origin of where our thoughts come from. They sort of pop into our head, and we can think, oh, that came from a very deep part of me. It's my intuition. It's some deep part of me, and maybe it is, but often it can be something very simple that led to a chain of thoughts that led to wherever you are at. There's a process in the meditation training I teach where you do this thing of tracking your thoughts. So once you discover that you're thinking, you kind of go, what was the thought that led to that thought? And you go back one. And then what was the thought that led to that thought? You go back one. And you keep going back till you find what the original source of the train of thought was. It's not easy to do. It takes a bit of practice to be able to do it. I mean, it takes practice just to be able to hear yourself thinking, meaning, you've turned off the pictures, you've turned off the sound, you're not thinking, and then suddenly you're thinking again, but you don't know you're thinking again. and until a certain point, and then you go, hang on a minute, I'm in the middle of meditation, and you stop the train. So tracking back your thoughts. So you might have this wonderful, beautiful, mystical thought of like, oh wow, that just totally came from the deep part of me. It's like it's a big intuition. I'm not saying it's not, but when you're used to tracking thoughts backwards, you often find that those thoughts, the origin of them is like a car door banging 3 houses down, or a drop of rain, or some little external stimulus triggered a train of thoughts that have led to these kind of thoughts. So this idea of like change your thoughts and change the world, it sounds great and it's true, but it's not easy. It's not simple. It's like when people learn, first hear about manifestation, or when The Secret came out, oh my God, it was like, all you have to do. And of course, everybody did all you have to do, and they weren't manifesting nothing close to what they wanted to manifest. And they were like, oh, I must be doing it wrong. And yeah, I suppose technically you were doing it wrong, but really, are you doing it wrong? Or is it just it's the way it's presented is overly simplistic? Because, in terms of manifestation, if you want to know where you're at with manifestation, you just have to look around. Like if you want to be a millionaire, just look around. That's wherever you're at, financially, that's your level of manifestation. And it didn't happen by accident. It's all the product of your thinking. Now, your thinking you might not be conscious of it. In fact, you're pretty much guaranteed you're not conscious of it, because they've done tests. I don't know how they even test this, but apparently like 95% of our thoughts are unconscious. They're the things that create what we want. So to be able to begin to change those unconscious things, that takes a bit of reflection. It takes a lot of meditation, and it takes a bit of finding ways to get the unconscious conscious, so that we can hear the subtle beliefs that we have that are creating what we see. So the idea of I think it's very helpful to recognize, if I change my thinking, then my world will change. And that is true, and I've seen that in my own experience in miraculous ways. But it's not like a light switch. It's not like you can just go, oh, okay, I'm tired of that way of thinking. Let me just flick the light switch and I'll just think in a completely different way. It doesn't work like that. Not in my experience. Because, as I say, most of it is unconscious. So you have to sort of tease it out. You have to sort of get it to come out of the dark and reveal itself, which requires a lot of understanding and compassion. Because if, let's say you want to become a millionaire, and you can kind of get a whiff of a belief, and then the belief comes a little bit forward, and it's like, I'm not worthy of being a millionaire. If you immediately go, well, that's ridiculous, of course I'm worthy of being a millionaire, that it would just recede back into the thing. It won't change. You'll just have driven it back in. So you have to, there's a lot of compassion required, and you really have to listen to what's going on the inside, with a lot of no judgment. Judgment just seems to drive them further away, and often they don't come out of the woodwork or out of the dark with any great ease. It requires a lot of gentle coaxing, and doing all sorts of different processes, and listening to other people who are good at the thing you want to do, like if it's manifestation, listening to them, seeing what they're being around that energy, lots of different things. So a meme like this, change your thoughts and you'll change the world. It's true, but it requires a lot of kindness to yourself. That's the ultimate kind of thing I'm heading towards. But I need to step forward in that direction in a very gentle way. So the next one is a quote from Jack Kornfield. If you don't know Jack Kornfield, he's got a lovely podcast. Can't remember what it's called, but you look up Jack Kornfield, it's easy to find. And he has a very lovely quality to him. I really I just find listening to him talking just very soothing. So I definitely encourage you to find out a bit more about Jack. This quote says, "If your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete," which is brilliant. And something that I've talked about quite a bit before. I think of it in terms of 360-degree love. Your love has to be 360-degree. I'm not making the rules here. When I say it has to be, that I mean it's my observation. And a lot of people, particularly if they've been wounded, if they've had trauma happen to them, if they've had the idea that there's something wrong pushed onto them by life, by somebody, then it's very hard for them to be 360-degree. They're 180-degree, meaning it's all their love is forward-facing. They just love everybody. They're so giving. They're so kind. They're just lovely, except they're really hard on themselves and they withhold their love, or they withhold love from themselves. And it becomes their giving then, their 180-degree giving becomes a kind of martyrdom, you know, or servitude. It doesn't feel good, even to be on the receiving end of it, because you're looking at somebody, you know, kind of martyring themselves just to give you something. It doesn't feel good. Whereas when the love is 360 degrees, as Jack says, then it's complete. Then the compassion is complete, which sounds nice, but it's not easy to do, particularly if you've got that kind of wound where the idea of giving to yourself or loving yourself is a bit shocking. Because, you know, the phone rings, somebody needs your help, but you've helped a lot that day, you've helped lots of people that day, and you need a bit of time, you need a rest maybe you need a cup of tea, maybe you need someone to help you to sort of go, I can't come or I can't help you, because you also know that it's not life and death, that somebody just could ring somebody else and get the help they needed. But to be the person that says no, oy, that can be very hard if you've got this thing of there's something wrong with me, and how I make that wrong right is by giving. Then it can be very challenging. So being 360 degree in your love, it's not easy. Not easy if you've got that wound. But it's so necessary, because then when it's 360 degrees, then it's very full. Your love is very full. What you give to people is, you know, full of vitality. It's full of juice, because it's not at the detriment of you. You haven't sacrificed anything. You haven't sacrificed yourself, and that you love yourself just as much as you love everybody else, which is what I think the mystery wants. I don't know for definite, but my sense of it is, because I've done both. And yeah, there's something very thin and brittle about 180 degree love, or just forward facing love, or forward facing compassion. I can forgive everybody of everything, but I can't forgive myself anything. That kind of thing. Very brittle. Whereas when the compassion includes you, there's a fullness to it. We're together in whatever it is that we're going through. And that's beautiful. So yeah, it's definitely worth having to think about, having a look at. Is my compassion 180 degrees just for everybody? Is my love just for everybody? Or do I include myself in it? Definitely worth thinking about. The next one says, you're allowed to be happy, hurting and healing all at once. You're a human, not a rock. And this kind of speaks to this thing of, we can get a bit compartmentalized on the inside. And compartmentalization is the antithesis of the spiritual life, or the life in consciousness, in my experience of it. As soon as you kind of go, I can only be one thing and not another thing, then you're going to run up against what's actually happening on the inside. And you know that because you can kind of go, I feel happy and sad all at the same time. Is that what it says in this? Happy and hurting, and I feel like I'm healing all at the same time. How can that be possible? How can I really love somebody and also find them very annoying? How can I be joyous and at the same time I want to cry with sorrow? These things, this is how it is inside, isn't it? We have all these different things. And it seems like our capacity to be able to hold the different things all at the same time, it has a lot to do with how we are doing in the spiritual life. Because initially it sort of wrecks your brain. It feels like your head is sort of splitting in two. It's like, how can I hold these two things at the same time? I can't. But with time and with reflection and meditation, of course, I'm going to talk about meditation, you can begin to sort of see them. Like initially, why it's difficult is because you're right up against the thoughts. It's like you're in the cinema and you have your nose against the screen and all you can see is what's on the screen. And when you start to meditate, you get a bit of distance from the screen. You pull back a little bit. And then you realize there's two screens and they have two different things going on. And then you realize there's three screens. And they're all different things and all are valid. I'm very upset. I'm very sad. I'm also very happy and joyful at the same time. When you're right up against it, you can only be in one screen or the other. You can't sort of see that there's two. And the further back you get, the more you can see, there's many different parts of me. There's many different parts of me. They all have different needs, different wants, different agendas. And the more I pull back, the more I can see them. And I can maybe give each one what it needs. A little bit for this one, a little bit of kindness, a little bit of listening. This one wants some reassurance, and so on. So being able to see that we are all these different parts, but then we're also the container, this overarching presence. And this overarching presence is like the latest version of us. It's the most up-to-date version of us. Some parts might be very old. They might be like from childhood. They need things, so we have to give those what they need, or we try to give those what they need. Other parts are a little bit more contemporary. Other parts are quite deep and spiritual, and they're very like, come on, what are we doing with our lives? This is not what we're here for. Let's get on with this thing. Who cares about the marriage? Who cares about the job? Who cares about the health? This is what we're here for. Let's just, they're the locomotive kind of parts that are just going to push everything forward. And all parts are equal in my experience. You don't get anywhere if you start putting hierarchies on the inside and going, the less conscious parts are not as good as the very conscious parts, the parts that know the deeper meaning of why I'm alive and what I'm doing with my life and all that kind of thing. They're better than the least conscious parts. That just leads to internal conflict, and it just gives my mind something to fight about, and split itself off into separate parts, this part saying one thing, another part saying another thing. Whereas when you get rid of hierarchy on the inside and go, all parts of me need to move forward together in consciousness. All parts. So the very deep, wise parts also need to move forward in consciousness. They're growing too. And equally the very unconscious parts of me, they need to move forward too. Now it's relative, of course, but it all has to move forward together, and each part is as valid as the other part. You can't make one wrong. We all have to, so a deeper part might go, that's it, we've got to move countries. Yes, that's the thing to do. And then this less conscious part of us might be quaking about that, like, oh my God, what, move countries? What am I going to do? Because the frontal part of us is the least conscious part of us. Like the part of me that's talking to you now, that's the least conscious part of me. And yet it's the part that has to make the words and has to, work the camera, talk to the postman, drive the car, pay the car tax, all that stuff. The least conscious part of me, the least resourced part of me has to interface with existence. So I have a lot of compassion for that part of me as well. And I know it's the least conscious part of me. I know it's the part that kind of, look, here's the deep part going, we must move countries. And it's like quaking, how am I going to do that? And it's not a case of you just kind of go, well, the deep part said it, so we just have to do it. It's like, well, okay, I can feel that you're terrified. What can we do so you're not so terrified? What can we do to kind of gently walk ourselves through this? Because it looks like we're going to do it anyway, because the deeper part seems to, know that that's the thing we should do. But I also recognize you're terrified. So it has to work for us all. Let's all move forward together. Because really, like without that kind of loving compassion to all parts of me, we just kind of stagnate and get into this twist in the inside, a kind of conflict of fighting, and we really don't move forward in consciousness. One part might, but the other part is left behind, and all parts have to move forward together. And when you take that approach of like, tell me why you're afraid, let's see what we can do in a loving, compassionate way, then you can all kind of move forward together, and no part is left behind, and no part is suppressed or locked in the attic or anything like that. All parts move forward together, and there's a beautiful kind of harmony on the inside, and a genuine affection develops on the inside for all the different parts of you as you all can move forward together in consciousness and love. The last one says, meditation. It's better than sitting around doing nothing. I really like this one. And it's kind of true. Meditation is a sitting around doing nothing, but it's a very active nothing. And it's like talking about the mystery, there really isn't much in the mystery, because you have you have thinking, then you have dreaming, then you have the psychic world, and then you have the mystery. There's nothing really to speak compared to all this other interesting stuff, all the wonderful things we can think about, all the amazing dreams we can have, all the wild stuff that's in the psychic world, ascended masters, demons, devils, fairies, angels, the whole lot are in there. I mean, compared to all that stuff, the mystery is nothing to speak of, or nothing in comparison. And yet it is alive with vitality and profundity, and it's our home. It's where we return to every night in deep dreamless sleep. But yet to enter it consciously through meditation is, from our mind's perspective, it's incredibly boring. Incredibly boring. But when you sit down to meditate, just as soon as when you close your eyes, there's such a great sense of relief, of like, oh my God, a rest from this existence thing. It's just a little return home for like 15 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Just a little break from the momentum. It's so momentous. It's got so much momentum. It's just one thing after another after another. It's also interesting, but we're a little bit like kids. When a kid is in somewhere like Disneyland or somewhere they're really excited about, eventually like they just become overstimulated, and then they start crying, and they don't know why they're crying. Then they start walking around in a circle, and they don't know why they're walking around in a circle, crying and banging their head into a wall and bumping off things, and upset and maybe a bit nauseous. They don't know why. We're a bit like that as adults in this highly stimulating world. I mean, I live in nature, so I get like stimulated by trees and things like that. But I'm on social media like everybody else. I'm watching the telly. I'm, interacting with people. So even in this very peaceful place where I live, it's still very stimulating. And God, if you're in a city, it's just like non-stop. So to close your eyes and just like, I'm just gonna have a minute now. I'm just gonna go into the mystery. It's such a relief. It's so refreshing. But from my mind's point of view, it's like, oh, not this again. Even though I've been meditating for many, many years, still my mind is like, oh God, do we have to? It kind of knows it's okay now. It's more accepting of it, but it's still resistant to it, even after this, and even after it's seen all the amazing benefits that I've gained from meditation. So this idea that meditation is better than sitting around doing nothing, which from the outside, that's exactly what it looks like. Someone meditating looks like they're just sitting around doing nothing, you know. And it's like there are monasteries where monks are up there. I don't know where they are now. They used to be in Tibet. Maybe they still are. And they're just meditating on peace, world peace. So they're sitting around doing nothing for 7 or 8 hours a day, just meditating on world peace, which is a great act of love, really, isn't it? They're doing that for you and me, so that we have peace in our lives. And that's a beautiful thing. So you could look at them going, yeah, that's not really working, lads. We're not exactly having world peace. But then you have to kind of go, well, what would the world be like if they didn't do that? We don't know, and hopefully they don't stop. But from the outside, you kind of look at them and go, what you're doing there, that's for world peace, is it? You're just sitting around doing nothing, which kind of goes back to the thing I was saying before about changing your thoughts, and that changes the world. Like, the world, the existence is kind of a product of what's going on inside us. So the more still we can be, and the more we connect with the mystery and the love of the mystery, and consciously return home to the mystery, it does influence what we do, much more so than a lot of the forceful things that we might try and get into in existence. Which is not to discount people who are doing that. That's great, and it really comes down to what you're moved to do. If you're moved to become a politician or change the system or protest or whatever, then great, do that. But if you're not, you can still have a big impact by focusing on what you are moved to do. And if you are moved to be still and connect to the beauty inside, connect to the love inside, then that makes a big difference too. So, yeah, it's funny. Meditation's better than sitting around doing nothing, because it isn't nothing. It's a very active not doing. And if you want to learn how to meditate from me, I have a nice 4-week training. Just take you from the beginning all the way through. And then there's the regular Space for the Mystery. That's every Monday. So yeah, lots of support for you if you want to meditate. All right, that's all I have for you this time. I trust you're well. I trust you're of good cheer. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.